Welcome to Pasadena Monthly, formerly known as News Wrap Local. I'm your host, Justin Chapman. Thanks for being here. Happy Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month and Mental Health Awareness Month. After taking a look at what's been going on in Pasadena this past month, we'll speak with our guest, Sycamores CEO and President Debra Manners. But before we get started, let's check out these Pasadena media news briefs.
The City of Pasadena is rolling out a new program to provide motorists a better parking experience. The Text Before Tow program notifies enrolled participants via text and email of an impending tow due to a blocked driveway, temporary parking, and 72-hour parking violations. In some situations, motorists may be unaware that they're at risk of being towed and simply need to be alerted. Traditionally, the city leaves a courtesy note when a car is tagged for removal due to violation. However, not everyone sees the note. To help residents avoid a costly tow, Pasadena has adopted the Text Before Tow program, and it is now ready for launch. Anyone who would like to sign up for the Text Before Tow program may do so free using a simple form. To sign up or to find additional information, visit cityofpasadena.net or call the Department of Transportation's Parking Services Division at 626-744-7665. The West Pasadena Residents Association will host its 61st annual meeting on May 31st at the Maranasa High School Student Center. The evening begins with a meet and greet information fair featuring representatives from multiple city groups and organizations. The theme this year is Pasadena 101, Meet Our New City Leaders. The event provides unique access to leaders of a number of critical city services and provides an opportunity to learn more effective ways to access those services and help shape city policy. The West Pasadena Residents Association is dedicated to maintaining the character of our communities and enhancing the quality of life in Pasadena. The event is at the Maranasa High School Student Center, May 31st, from 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Free parking is available next to the school on South St. John, with general parking beneath the athletic field and handicapped parking on the surface lot. For more information, visit wpra.net. Pasadena City Council unanimously approves a $12 million purchase of a site for housing and mental health care. In early March, the city manager was tasked with identifying suitable properties for this collaborative venture with the County of Los Angeles, and now the resulting $12 million purchase is jointly shared. The purchase announcement was made at a special press conference on April 25th, where Mayor Victor Gordo celebrated the speed and precision of Los Angeles County's collaboration with the City of Pasadena to initiate this phase of the project. Gordo said, "Now in partnership with the county, we are going to make this investment in this part of our city on North Lake Avenue and bring forward desperately needed services to the people that we represent." Gordo continued, "This is the beginning of a journey to do the right thing at this property and for the residents of Pasadena."
Just a quick note before we get started. The previous iteration of this show, News Wrap Local, has been nominated for an LA Press Club Journalism Award in the TV and Film Talk Public Affairs category, as have I in the Anchor Host category. Thank you to everyone who has watched and supported the show over the past couple years. It means a lot to me and everyone at Pasadena Media. The award ceremony is in June. Wish us luck. Let's turn next to our lightning round of news updates. 1. The city is currently considering a proposed $1.2 billion operating budget for fiscal year 23 to 24. The first time the budget has been more than $1 billion and an increase of $288 million over last year's budget of $955.7 million. That's mostly due to a one-time infusion of $181 million from Metro's Measure R funds for transportation improvement projects, increased water and power costs, increased disposal costs, but also a $27.3 million increase in the general fund budget for such basic services as police, fire, libraries, parks, and so on. All city departments, including the police department, will receive budget increases except for housing and public works, which will see decreases of 6% and 7.3% respectively if the proposed budget is approved. 2. The City Council and the Civilian Police Oversight Commission received a presentation from the Office of Independent Review about their recently released report on the Anthony McLean shooting by Pasadena Police. The report made 27 procedural and policy recommendations for the police department. Chief Gene Harris said the department has already adopted some, agreed with others, agreed in concept with some, and disagreed with 2. The report called for clearly defining the role of police union representatives at the scene of an officer-involved shooting. and for the department to reconsider using pretext stops such as minor vehicle violations, like a missing front license plate or something hanging from the rearview mirror, because, as OIR Principal Michael Giannacco said, these stops disproportionately impact people of color more than others. Several of these recommendations will go to the Public Safety Committee and then back to the full council again. At the next council meeting, Chief Harris will present a work plan with the timeline for implementing the recommendations. Meanwhile, the city's independent police auditor reviewed the police department's use of force assessment policies and procedures and 30 use of force cases between June 2021 to November 2022 and concluded that he found no reason to believe that Pasadena officers engaged in the use of excessive force on a systemic basis during that period. Though he did recommend 10 policy changes, including regarding the use of body-worn cameras and tasers. The police department agreed to implement all of his recommendations. 3. Council Districts 1, 2, 4, 6, and the mayoral seat will be on local ballots in the March 5th, 2024 primary election, less than a year away. Former Pasadena Mayor Rick Cole has announced that he will run for Council District 2. Incumbent Felicia Williams is running for California State Assembly seat held by Chris Holden, who is termed out and running for Catherine Barger's District 5 seat on the LA County Board of Supervisors. Current Pasadena Mayor Victor Gordo announced that he is running for re-election. In District 4, Pasadena Human Relations Commissioner Jonathan Horton will run for the seat currently held by Councilmember Gene Masuda. 4. Pasadena Unified Superintendent Dr. Brian McDonald was one of 3 finalists for the new superintendent of the school district in Columbus, Ohio, but was ultimately not selected. Several members of PUSD's executive leadership team have resigned recently, including the Chief Business Officer, Facilities Director, Chief of Technology, and Chief Human Resources Officer. Meanwhile, Pasadena City College Superintendent and President Dr. Erica Androjonas has been selected as the next superintendent and president of the Santa Barbara Community College District. Her contract is expected to be finalized by June 15th, and she would start August 1st. Her tenure at PCC had detractors and supporters, and was marked by a clash between the administration and faculty and the Board of Trustees. The faculty passed a vote of no confidence in her administration last May, mostly due to how they handled the return to in-person teaching. 5. The California Apartment Association said it will appeal the recent Superior Court decision against its lawsuit attempting to invalidate Measure H, the voter-approved rent control charter amendment. In March, a judge denied most of CAA's claims. The appeals process could take months and will ultimately be decided by a 3-judge panel from the 9th District Court of Appeals. Meanwhile, the recently appointed Rental Housing Board, which will implement and administer Measure H, held its first meeting this week. The council allocated an advance of $500,000 from the city's American Rescue Plan Act funds to get the board started, which the board will reimburse once it sets up an annual rental housing fee to be paid by landlords. 6. Reverend Mike Kinman, the rector of All Saints Church, announced recently that 2 threats had been made against the church. One threat claimed a bomb had been placed at its entrance and would detonate during May 7th services. The other came from an individual who said he would attend the same service and quote, kill the pastor of the All Saints LGBTQ Ministry Church. The church implemented a number of additional security measures, and thankfully, no violence materialized. This is not an isolated incident, but rather part of the rise of violence and violent rhetoric against LGBTQ plus individuals across the country. 7. The City Council voted to keep water restrictions in place, despite California Governor Gavin Newsom easing drought conditions restrictions due to record rains from the recent storms. Outdoor watering in the city will continue to be limited to 2 days per week from April to October and 1 day per week from November to March. 8. 53-year-old Richard Chamberlain of Ontario was sentenced to 2.5 years in federal prison for firing BB guns at the Pasadena Planned Parenthood facility on Lake Avenue 11 times between June 2020 and May 2021. He was also ordered to pay nearly $43,000 in restitution. U.S. District Judge Michael Fitzgerald said the attacks were, quote, a reign of terror, and that Chamberlain acted in a calculated and cruel way against Planned Parenthood, its staff, and patients. Thankfully, no one was hurt. Again, part of a larger trend that's happening across the country. 9. U.S. Secretary of the Navy Carlos Del Toro said in a recent letter to Congressman Adam Schiff that he will give, quote, due consideration to naming a new Navy ship after the city of Pasadena. The current USS Pasadena, a nuclear submarine commissioned in 1989, will be decommissioned by next year. Del Toro wrote, Considering the proud history and record of service that follow other ships that bore or still bear the name of the city of Pasadena, paired with the understanding that the city of Pasadena takes great pride and an active role in supporting the current crew and families of USS Pasadena, this request is fitting. Continuing to honor the city of Pasadena after the decommissioning of the current USS Pasadena by having a new ship bear the name is a recommendation worthy of consideration, end quote. And 10, last month, we reported that the annual Chalk Festival was canceled. Well, a couple days later, it was back on for June 17th and 18th, this time at the Convention Center Plaza across the street from its recent location of Paseo. Let's patch in our guest, Debra Manners. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Debra is the president and CEO of Sycamores, a behavioral health and child welfare agency. She has dedicated her career to serving children and families. Her innovative leadership and visionary work to lead the child welfare and behavioral health fields has resulted in positive changes for thousands of children in the foster care system throughout California. Starting at Sycamores in 1987, she served in a variety of roles, culminating in her current role as president and CEO. And during that time, the organization expanded from a single site with a $2.5 million operating budget to 10 service locations throughout LA County and Palm Springs, and an operating budget of $68 million. She has led the agency in developing new programs that have been adopted as the standard of care throughout California. So, Debra, what is Sycamores? What does it do?
So Sycamores, as you said, is a behavioral health agency, and we also have child welfare, foster youth that we serve. So we have a variety of programs. So I'll just highlight kind of what our largest programs are. So starting with our residential program, which is really the legacy program for Sycamores, and that's located up in Altadena. We serve adolescent boys who are in the foster care system or coming from the probation system. We provide aftercare to those youth. We do family finding search and engagement. So we really focus on the family work that goes with keeping them involved with their families so that they can stay with a family, caring about them, because as you know, many foster youth end up in the homeless system and are unhoused. And so we expanded into housing transition age youth or young adults who were foster youth starting in the early 2000s. And so now it's expanded. We have about 140 beds in scattered site apartments, and we provide mental health services and supports. And then we also provide whatever else they need so they can stay housed and be successful. We provide school-based mental health services throughout Los Angeles County. We're in about 42 schools on site. And then we also provide school-based mental health services in just kind of more of a drop-in model. Again, we've been doing those services since 1997. Up in Palmdale, we have a family resource center, learning lab. We provide all kinds of preventative service, outreach services, mental health services, as I said, tutoring, and a food bank to the Palmdale community. At our Highland Park campus, we have a clinic, mental health clinic, and we also have a food bank. Then we have extensive community-based services that are provided in the community, in the families' homes, and those clinics are located in Pacoima, Commerce. We have another one here in Pasadena. We also have it in South Los Angeles. And in Riverside County and in Palm Springs. So we have actually 2 clinics in Pacoima. So that pretty much makes up our 10 locations of care. And recently we launched what's called our mobile crisis outreach teams. And that is almost countywide with the exception of Long Beach, Commerce, and the West Side, Santa Monica. And that is tied to calling 988 to a mental health crisis. That call is answered, and if there is a need for stabilization or hospitalization, we then dispatch our mobile crisis teams that are comprised of a clinician and a peer support specialist with lived experience.
That's great. And so Sycamores was founded under another name back in 1902, meaning it recently celebrated its 120th anniversary. And there have been different variations over the years. So give us a brief history of the organization.
Correct. So in 1902, we were the Pasadena Children's Training Society. We were founded by the same family that founded the Tournament of Roses.
Oh, wow.
And they also, started what was basically an orphanage. And then in the 50s, changed the name to the DBA, the Sycamores. And that's when we ended up in our Altadena location. Then in 2005, we entered into a conversation with Hathaway, and they had a residential treatment program called the Children's Village up in Tahunga. And then they had some other kind of community-based clinic programs in Pacoima. So in 2006, that merger was completed, and we became Hathaway Sycamores. Mm-hmm. The intention was never to keep both of the names. It kind of sounds like a law firm. And so we always wanted to get back to one name. And so that is what we did. We were supposed to launch our new name right before the pandemic. And so we held off because we felt like nobody cared. So we came out then as Sycamores, and with the new tagline, A Better Life.
Oh. And are there any special activities going on there for Mental Health Awareness Month?
May has been incredibly busy. So we've been featured on Spectrum TV, done some videos about our school-based mental health programs, about our mobile crisis programs, and also our homeless services programs. We were a supporter of the NAMI Walk LA. We have our Palmdale site, which I talked about, and we've been doing a lot of activities with children's and families in the community, art projects, just a lot of engagement out in the community. And then we had our gala, which was 2 weeks ago, and it was here at the Highland Park location.
Yeah, so tell us about how that went and about the programs that will benefit, such as the short-term residential treatment program.
So the gala, typically with the money that's raised, we use it to help the adolescent boys who are living in our short-term residential treatment program transition into their own apartments, which is part of our housing and homeless services program. So we use those dollars specifically for those youth, and then any other young adults who can benefit from anything that we would provide for our own young adults if we were supporting them to get a job or to go and get an education. So bus passes, books, food, keeping the lights on, whatever they need, computer classes, Wi-Fi, all of the kind of basic things that we all take for granted. But when you're living on a budget and you don't have a family, you need someone to help you with that.
Mm-hmm. And how many kids reside at the Altadena location at any given time? And without providing names, can you tell us about a couple of their stories, or what kind of unique challenges are these children facing?
Yes, I can tell you. So, many years ago, we had about 60 kids at our Altadena campus, and over the years, the practice has changed, as I kind of talked about, learning more about how to do family finding, search, and engagement, which with technology now, it's really easy to find family members where, before we had to hire a private investigator to do that. Now we can do that on our own. And we find families all over the country. And so that's been very resourceful. And so what has happened is that kids stay shorter periods of time in residential. So now our numbers are more closer to like 32. So about half the kids are in our residential program. So some just great stories. One that we've talked about quite a bit, and he doesn't mind if we share his name because he's so proud of his success. His name is Sergio. He actually came to us twice. And one time he came into our shelter program. He was actually homeless. He graduated from our residential program with a relationship with his family, but he wanted to go into his own apartment, which he has done successfully. And now he has this great job working at a grocery store. And he's also taking classes in photography, which is his passion. Wow. So he's doing well and he's supporting himself.
That's great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great kid.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I recently toured the Altadena campus, and there's the music room, editing facilities, art room, some really great stuff to engage the kids and help build skills, and also there's a new facility where families can come stay for short periods of time.
Yeah,
right?
so that is one of the things that sets us apart from any other residential program. Several years ago, we built what are called basically family apartments. And so as we started finding families in Washington State, New York, Florida, Texas, having them come out so that they could be with their child was very, very expensive. So we decided instead of them needing to have to pay for a hotel room, that we could house them on the campus. Of course, their son would still sleep in the living unit, but they're able to spend time together during the day. And we were able to do family work, the clinical work that goes along with helping families, really heal from the trauma and the separation that they've experienced over the years.
Mhm.
And it was interesting because we've also had some families who we found and were homeless, and we were able to bring them on to the campus, have them live there, and then bring in our homeless services program and help them become housed.
Mhm. Wow. And does Sycamores work with court-appointed special advocates? How does that work?
So foster youth are appointed what's called CASA workers. That's the advocates. And the CASA workers are really, really important, especially if the youth has no family, does not have a mentor, and really has no one in their corner. The CASA worker can be that voice for the youth and really advocate for them. And that's especially important if they have a social worker with the county who has a large caseload and is somewhat overwhelmed. And there's been a lot of work done to reduce those caseloads, but the CASA workers, it can be very, very important to that individual child. And sometimes they stay with them for years. If they're in the system for a long time, they stay with them for years.
And you also have a lot of, I don't know about a lot, but you have some kids who go through Sycamores and then come back to work there or be mentors or
We
help
do.
and
Yes.
complete that circle.
We hire, they're called peer support specialists, and they come back and they work in our residential program, they work in our transitional living program, or they work in the mobile crisis outreach program. Yeah, they're great. And we hire parents who've also had lived experience, either had their child removed for abuse and neglect, and then were able to get their children back, or have had a child in the probation system or with a mental health issue. And those parents can really engage other parents because they've walked in their shoes.
Yeah, that lived experience must be so valuable. So how can people help? I imagine funding is always a challenge. How can the greater Pasadena community help support Sycamores?
Well, there are a lot of opportunities to help. And one way that's incredibly significant is mentoring the adolescent boys at our El Nido campus, because many of them have not been exposed to different kinds of education, jobs, careers. We have mentors who come up and play basketball with our kids. So just having that experience to interact with other individuals who are not in their circle is incredibly helpful. And I know the youth really appreciate that. We have tutors at our Palmdale Learning Lab, and many of the kids do the tutoring via Zoom. And so you don't have to get in your car and drive up to Palmdale. You can do it from your home. And so that's really important. And then we have groups that often do what we call done in a day projects. So we have a garden in Highland Park that always needs a lot of work. We have a garden up in our Altadena, a residential program that needs a lot of work. And then we just have folks that do done in a day projects, like in September, they buy backpacks, they stuff them for the youth so that they can take them to school with them when school starts. So there's just a lot of creative ways. It's kind of whatever your passion is, you can always bring it to Sycamores, and we'll find a way to fit it in. And then if you don't have the time, you can always donate. We appreciate that as well.
Right. No, that's great. That's a lot of ways that people get involved. So where can people learn more about Sycamores, and how can they get in contact with you?
So they can visit our website, sycamores.org, and there is an opportunity to look at ways to get involved. And you can see everything I've just talked about is there available for you, and you can connect with one of our staff.
Great. Well, Debra Manners, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us about the important work you do, and it's really inspiring. And I encourage people to go visit and to learn more and donate and donate their time. It's really meaningful work, and so I appreciate you coming on to talk about it.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And yes, it makes a difference and makes a better world. So thank you.
Before we go, here is this month in Pasadena history. It was this month in 1906 when a $125,000 bond was issued to pay for the construction of Pasadena's first power plant, which was a wood frame and corrugated sheet iron structure that only supplied power to the city's streetlights. 1906 was also when the city established its municipal light and power department. Power wasn't offered to commercial customers until 1908, and the city bought out SoCal Edison's Pasadena operations in 1920. The city bought electricity from Boulder Dam, later renamed Hoover Dam, in 1928, and the dam started delivering power in 1935. Today, the Water and Power Department is entering another transitional phase as the city seeks to go 100% carbon-free by 2030. Thank you all so much for joining me for this episode of Pasadena Monthly. Tune in every fourth Friday of the month at 5 p.m. Learn more at pasadenamedia.org and justindouglaschapman.com. Drop me a line at jchapman@cityofpasadena.net. See you next time.